welcome to the channel. My name is Karsha Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave TV, and today for our newest or latest, how can I put this? Our latest tabletop book week. I know it's delayed for a week. We're going to have a look at Masks: A New Generation. Before we get into it, I do want to say, if you are watching this on our Twitch channel for our VODs, please go and watch it on our YouTube. We're trying to grow our YouTube, trying to be a bit more active on YouTube. Everything we do goes onto YouTube. There's about a 24-hour delay, and that's a contractual thing. Please, at the end of the year, we're going to be switching off the VODs on our Twitch channel again, and we're going to be moving it all across to YouTube. Please go watch it on YouTube. Leave comments if you like the video, if you like the information, if you like the look of the channel. Leave a comment. Tell us about it. Tell us about what you think. Tell us about what you love about role-playing, what you like about superhero role-playing, comic book hero role-playing, that type of stuff, especially with this one. Like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Every interaction you do on our YouTube channel grows our YouTube channel. If you're using our Twitch channel for our VODs, nothing happens, except for you get to watch a video. If you watch it on YouTube, so much more happens. So please go to our YouTube channel. It's Goblin Cave TV on YouTube. That's where we are. Please help us out, help out the channel by doing that. It makes a big impact for the channel. Anyway, let's get into this. So today we're having a look at Masks: A New Generation. Now, Masks is powered by Apocalypse. So it's a GM Light or Prepless Light campaign. The GM doesn't roll a dice at all. The GM's kind of a narrator and works in the conversation. It's a very different style of the campaign. We're going to have a look at the rules. We're going to have a look at the style of how it differs from the more traditional role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and all the Dungeons & Dragons series. Called through all the older established games. Are very different from how Powered by Apocalypse work. Now, by saying that, this is a new style of gaming for me. Absolutely new. Which is why I've struggled to actually understand and comprehend. I need to play it a few times, like in this style, to actually get into it a bit more. And we're going to be looking at Powered by Apocalypse specifically soon. We're going to actually have someone come in who does know the system quite well and came into role playing from Powered by Apocalypse style, and he's learning the older styles. And I'm going from the other direction. I've been doing the older styles for so many years. I'm struggling for the Powered by Apocalypse style. So we're going to have someone come in and speak and talk and chat about that style, because it's so foreign to me. But I want to have a look at Masks as comic book, superhero, that type of thing really excites me. I like these type of things. And I'm wearing my Cthulhu for 2020. Yep. Brand new shirt. I've been wanting to wear it. Anyway, so this is made by Magpie Games. It is a rules-light system. The rules are one page for the most part. It's a nice book, actually. I've got it. Oh, I know I've put them somewhere. Put them in a different slot. So it's a smaller book. It's decent thickness, and the artwork is just brilliant. You won't be able to see much of that, sorry, but the artwork's just absolutely brilliant. The stylization of everything, it's just absolute comic book. It's beautifully done. I just found an old bookmark, which is my little goblins school photo from a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, I've owned this book for a while, and I haven't really gotten to read a lot of it. But every time I read it, I'm like, this is so much fun. This is so cool. And this is also another supplement for it, the Masks: A New Generation, the Halcyon City Herald Collection. So they've got some really good source books out there as well. It's not just a single one book. That's all you get. No, they've actually been supporting the product, which is great to see. Really great to see from smaller publishing and smaller efforts. But either way. So yeah, as I said, it's a rules-light system. And so the idea, the function here, the style, is that this is a setting where there's been generations upon generations of superheroes. So you've got the Silver Edition, you got like the Silver era, and like all the eras of superheroes. And you're the current generation. You're the new generation of superheroes. You're essentially kids, and you've got all this weight of the previous generations above you, telling you how to do things, trying to mentor you, trying to guide you in the right direction. And there's this pressure, the constant pressure of being the new generation. And I really like that style. It's a really good energy for a style of role playing, for a theme where yes, you've got superheroes, but like there's mentors and there's other generations that also have superheroes and are more established and are more functional than you are. So it's a really cool establishing type of game where you're trying to establish yourself, trying to establish your name and who you are in the superhero era, and I like that. So I usually have a little blurb on the side here. So a new generation of young heroes fights villains, saves lives, and tries to figure out who they are. Noble paragons, dark avengers, or regular kids, all against the backdrop of a city which has seen many generations of heroes to guide you, to tell you what to do with your power. I like that. That's actually from I think it's the back cover of the book, or it's just beautifully said. It's just like a really great setting. So as always, we're using a PDF of the book. We're not going to go through all the book because that will be just blatant badly copyrighted stuff. And we do have a color shade. It's just a darken. It's about 10% darker. Just because if we have white pages on the PDFs, it's super bright for the thing. So and it's also I don't like it for my eyes personally. So I just put a little bit of shade, but you can see the difference in the shade of the book there and the book down there of the two different colors. So to give you an idea of how much shading there is. So the book itself, got to do. So the artwork throughout the book is just amazing. They're such good, it's consistent throughout the book as well. So I really love that they've been able to get consistency. Now, so we've got a few chapters here, and there's a lot of pages. So this is a 200 plus page book. So there's a lot there. But the rules, the basics here, between page 23 and about 34. So really, really small. And the actual rules, it's one page. So we're going to actually go to that one page, have a look at that specifically. Then we're going to move to the style of play, because it's a Powered by Apocalypse, talking about the conversation. And then we're going to go into the actual, a few things about how this game works as opposed to maybe others. Just also before we get too far into it, we are using Syrinscape for our audio. We have the Syrinscape sci-fi playing in the background with the street battle, heroes and villains. So that's the background audio that you're hearing, just particularly in the background, because I think it gets me in the mood for that superhero conflict and the fighting and whatnot. I love Syrinscape. They really add to your gaming, online, offline gaming. You can run it off your computer. You can run it off a tablet or phone. It's amazing. And they can really, really add to it. They've got full campaigns already set up for you if you're running more popular campaigns or more popular game systems. Or they've got so many generic stuff that you can pick and max and what you want into your themes and of your rooms or of your stories or whatever. It's really, really amazing. They're not a sponsor of the channel, but they are a local company and they are just really, really amazing. And when I've had problems, they've always just came to my aid. They're just really nice people. So anyway, let's get into it. So we're going to page 28. So is that the right one? I think I got the wrong one, of course. I was just here. Oh no, so 28's this 28. Okay. 28's 30 apparently. In the PDF. So this is the rule. one page done, and some of it's like a fifth of it or a quarter of that is like explanation, like a example. So hits and misses. The absolute basic here is when you're asked to roll dice, it is 2d6. You may have pluses or minuses. So it's 2d6 plus, say, freak, danger, survivor, and all other conditions marked on your character sheet. And that's what the GM, like, you narrate what you say, narrate what is happening, and the games master will ask you to add, like, freak or danger or something to your role. It's the games master or the person narrating the game. They are the ones, or GM, and they are the ones that tell you which dice to use, or so which condition to use, and that's the important part. You don't just roll dice. You explain, you narrate what you're doing, what your actions are, and it is the games master which will call for a roll. And most of the things you do are not asked for, and it's only when you trigger one of your basic conditions or higher, and that's the only time when you do it. So there's a example which we'll get to in a moment, where we'll get to it a little bit later, where it talks about you're throwing around tables and whatnot. It's like, you got your superhero strength, you don't need to make a roll to throw the table, that's nothing. But it's when you get into combat, it's like, oh, like the players say, oh, I'm just going to throw the people around. It's like, oh, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to put yourself in danger? And it's like, the threat's like, yeah, maybe. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. And then the call for the roll. So that type of thing, kind of you don't just do a roll. It's like, oh, I attack and this is my role, and you tell the GM. No, it's, you narrate what you're doing, you explain, in your narration, you're explaining what your character is doing, and if the role is needed, the GM will ask for one, and it's not as common as people think. Like, not as common as other games, I should probably point out. Which is pretty cool, and I like that. You are superheroes, and you're asked to play flawed superheroes. So you also need to narrate your own flaws into bits and pieces throughout them. Anyway, as I was saying, so 2d6, adding danger if you're putting yourself in danger, etc. And then, so that might be up to +4 or down to -3. So those are the maximums you can get pluses, and the minus you get pluses. You're aiming to get aiming to get 7 or higher. So 7 is a hit, and a 6 is a miss. So a miss isn't necessarily like nothing happens. A miss is the GM gets to narrate what happens, and you still might get what you wanted, but the GM's narrating it, so it may not also, it may be something else on top of that. But the idea is that you want to get 7 or higher, but you also want to get 10 or higher. 10 is an amazing, it's a strong hit where pretty much everything you wanted happens. 7 to 9 is just a hit. So largely you keep control of the situation or some version of it. And I think that's a really, really great one. The other thing is that if you take a powerful blow, if you take a blow, you're like rolling for how much you get hit. So that's the one you want to fail. And the other thing is that the GM doesn't roll anything. I think that's really interesting. The GM takes no dice rolls for the entire time. It's all player driven, and like everything is player driven for how they narrate their actions, and it's just the GM that decides what constitutes like what they're using for what they're narrating, and so it's the player that narrates how and what it works. And I really like that. I've seen it in a few things that are not powered by Apocalypse, and I try to be a bit more ambiguous with the more older school games where I allow for different uses of skills. It's probably the best way of putting it. Like skills which are, like could be used in different ways, or you could be doing something For escaping, you could use brute strength, or you could use escape artist. For intimidation, you could use charisma, or you could use strength, and you can like those type of things. I can see the different approaches, and I think it's really important to try to like have those options. And in this, that's the entirety of the system. You have multiple options. It's the GM that tries to figure out how you've described what you're doing and what it now applies to. So when you're describing your actions, you're essentially you're describing in a way which you're trying to shade which direction you want to use, which skill you want to use. And that kind of works. I think it works really well. I just haven't had the chance to play these ones. Or GM. So it's got an example here. Marissa rolls to toss the black clad goons and sadly rolls a 2. Sadly rolls a 2 with danger +2. That makes 4, which is a miss. Yeah, you've thrown them into... Well, actually, we'll go up one. We'll read this one first. And then we'll go to the other one, just so you understand where we are, because this is the first example of Marissa. So Marissa's character, Toro the Bull, is in a super lab, like the kind that experimented on her. She's not happy about it. You recognise the gene vats, the nanomachines, all the equipment. Toro, I say it's really like coming home. And there are people, teenagers like you, floating in those vats. Floating in those gene vats on the far side of the room. The scientists in the room look at you aghast. Hell no, Marissa says. I start flinging those tables and chucking them around like crazy. I want to get this place messed up. So this is a book of... this is a tabletop board game. So this is one of the tabletop board games on the market. It's called Mask: A New Generation. It's a new style powered by Apocalypse, which is a very GM friendly game. It's a very modern style of the modern style of Dungeons and Dragons, but this is one specifically about superheroes. So we just go through the rules a little bit and explain why this is different to others and what I like about it. Welcome in, Priest. Welcome in. So the example is that she's going, oh hell no! I start flinging the tables over and chucking them around. I want to mess this place up, because it reminds her of the vats which made her a superhero, as a kid. So the GM nods. Tori doesn't trigger and roll yet or move yet because she's super strong. Flipping over tables is nothing for her. There's no difficulty in that. She's too strong to doesn't need to make a check for that. She's unthreatened. So yeah, you mess the tables up. Upend chemical spills over. Scientists go running. The room is trash, and that's when a whole squad of black armored thugs with assault rifles comes into the room. They don't even look at you. They look like they don't even look like they're going to ask you to surrender. They look like they're just going to shoot. So Marissa then grins at the GM, says, "Awesome! I wade into the midst and start tossing them around." The GM, "Perfect. So you're directly engaging the threat? Definitely?" Oh, Marissa makes a face. Oof, holding up. I didn't think those guys were actually danger. I'm bulletproof, right? Yeah, but well trained and pouring concentrated fire your way. They're pretty dangerous, even to you. You still want to wade in and toss them around? Marissa has time to reconsider actions. She hasn't crossed the line yet. Yeah, let's go for it. And then Marissa actually engages the threat, and that's when you actually have to make a roll. So that's like a basic scene in the role playing of she's describing the games master is describing the room and what's happening. The player describes what her character is doing, sometimes in character, sometimes talking about third party as my character is doing this or Toro is doing this. But in this case, she's talking about I do this, I throw the tables around, and etc. But there's a part there where it's like the black-clad goons come in with assault rifles, like, yeah, bulletproof. I'm just going to wait, and it's like, but the games master's like, do you really want to trigger that? I'm giving you that chance to reconsider. And she's got that option, but she goes in anyway, and that activates a roll, that activates an actual threat scene. So we go into this part, which is actually the system, which where it goes, Marissa rolls to toss those black-clad goons, I'm reading down here by the way, those black-clad goons around, and sadly rolls a 2 with a danger of +2, that gives 4 in total. So 2 on her roll, and a +2 because she gets a +2 when she's engaging danger. So a 4 is a miss because she needs to get a 7 or higher out of 2d6 on the roll, and yeah, so 7 or higher. So she misses, but a miss doesn't mean she misses. A miss means the games master then takes narrative control about what happens. So yeah, you're thrown into the mix with them. They're pumping you're pumping bullets your way, but you largely shrug them off, chucking soldier types around. When you hurl the last one, all the way up against the ceiling and watch them fall back down, you notice their features underneath their cracked helmet. The guy's a teenager. You peel off their helmet and find the guy is no older than you, but with implants in his skin. Each one you check is the same, another teen showing signs of experimentation. You just beat up your lab siblings, the same people you're hoping to save. The player then groans, now I feel terrible. So that's where the GM takes narrative control. You failed a roll, but you still can beat up the goons because you're a superhero. But there was something else. The games master can then complicate things by going, you just beat up people that were experimented onto. So yeah, that's a nice way of doing things where the system is so simple. All you're doing is you narrate your so all you're doing in this system is you narrating your actions, and it's only when those actions trigger a condition or trigger an actual basic move, like attacking something that is an actual threat, that's when you roll the dice. And you're only rolling 2d6, which is the simple system, and you're adding something which the games master then says. But it's only when the games master says, okay, roll this with this. And it could be a plus, it could be a minus. And a lot of games you just, like a lot of games have the player going, okay, I want to search the room, here's my search check, and blah, blah, blah. But in this one, it's very much more narrative, very much more creative with the player describing their actions. But as the games master then just goes, okay, that sounds like you need to roll this instead. And it's only when it does trigger something that you do roll, which is actually really interesting. And the games master, again, doesn't roll a thing. It's so different from normal role-playing games. But this is a Powered by Apocalypse game, which is a very new system for me that's been doing role-playing for 25 years. Powered by Apocalypse just blows my mind because it is so foreign, but I really want to learn the style because it's so interesting. And it takes almost no preparation compared to the 15 plus 20 hours plus that I do for shows on this channel. But anyway, so that's all core mechanics right there. So we'll go into the conversation. So I want to go to the mechanics first and then speak about the conversation and framing scenes. So playing Mask is a conversation, which means it's easy. You sit down at the table with your dice and pencils and paper sheets, and you talk to each other. For the most part, the conversation revolves around your character. You say what they do, how they react. Since other players don't live in your head, you convey your character's emotions and feelings to the other players and the games master. So there are times in the conversation where you slip directly into your character's shoes, not narrating, but actually talking on your character's persona, and possibly making gestures. Make gestures the character makes, say things your character says, say it in the language or in the style, character acting, etc. Most people do this without thinking, about it much. It's pretty natural because your character that you're playing, it's pretty natural because to become the character that you're playing, to want what they want, to fear what to want that they want, to fear the overcome, to fear the outcome of a dice at critical moments. So, a strange thing about role playing is your brain starts remembering things as your character. So when you start talking about role playing stories, you often say, "I did this" or "we did this" instead of "my character did this." It's a really strange function of the brain where, when you get into a role playing games, your brain starts like imagining things in the first perspective, as in you did this, and it's a great way of exploring loss, danger, risk calculations, and all those types of things. And it's a really interesting way of doing that, and so your brain actually changes that a little bit, but it learns from its mistakes, and it's a safe environment because it's all imagination and all that conversations and cooperative storytelling. So that goes into it perfectly. That it's okay to slip into character. It happens a lot, and it's a normal thing. It's okay. So the conversation in a role playing game evolves naturally over the course of a session, but it's your job to keep the conversation interesting. The rules and the techniques and everything you bring to the table is about driving the conversation forward towards interesting places. Explosive fights, emotional confessions, heroic sacrifices, wherever the fiction takes you. So framing the scenes. So framing the scenes is about kind of how like the games master will frame the scene and start talking about how things are, but the players themselves also take that narrative control to frame the scene and to explain how things are going. But it's only when things go wrong will the games master take that power away from the players. Again, if you miss that role, and add things which may not be great for the players. The whole idea is that it's a cooperative storytelling between the games master, who doesn't have a player, doesn't have a character, who isn't in control of the world as such, but it's the players as well, talking about how like their interactions with that world, but they also describe the world around them as well, and there's that to and fro constant conversation, which is really how role playing works. But they take it further than what a role playing game does. They have less dice mechanics, they have less rule structure, which means it can flow far more, and it can be a lot more free. So a hard framing is kind of a railroading a player into a situation. So it's kind of pushing them into a situation where they may not have chosen themselves, but it adds to the narrative and adds to the tension maybe. So in this case, I'll read the example. Joe's character, the Hornet, Hornet the Prodigy, is trained by Mantis, a skilled, capable hero from the Silver Generation. Hornet was relatively unscathed by the dressing down with the gentleman, so I decided that the Hornet story needs a strong push. They aren't masked characters if they aren't getting pushed around, which is just really interesting. So Hornet, where are you headed after the meeting at the team base? Check in with Mantis? You haven't talked to her for a while. You haven't talked to her about since the fight. Yeah, I think I'll go talk to her. So I need to know what she thinks about finding those kids we fought. So there's a gentle push by the games master. It's a railroad, but it's a gentle hint. And it's like you're leading the character, you're leading the player into a direction you're trying to push them. So awesome! You arrive at the secret teleport that she set up for you, the one hidden in the area, right? And it's not camouflaged like it should be. The portal looks damaged. Through faint image, you see in the archway, you see a sparkling control consoles. Looks like somebody wrenched the portal open and forced their way through. What do you do? So, forcing that immediate action. What do you do? There's no, I'm just gonna like go back and plan. I'm gonna get my friends. I'm gonna call them for backup. Like I'll go to another portal which I know. No. What do you do right now? and get that sense of urgency out of the player to go, okay, are you going to go in or are you not going to go in? And really, really push that into them. Get the stress, get the tension in, because it's a comic book. Like, the game is set around comic book heroes, so you really got to do, what do you do? And another way of doing that, which is like a style I like, is just a, what do you do? And just put your hand up and start ticking down your fingers to really put that tension in. And I love that style. We're trying to implement that or similar stuff into recent games. So it's a hard framings, like you are setting up a scene, you're leading the player into the scene without dragging them, but you're kind of leading them into something you're going to try to do. And then you give them that, what do you do? And you're forcing them to make that action, that hard action. So in superhero comics in particular, have a long history of the retcon. So there's another thing here where it talks about, like, sometimes, so retcon can be good and can be bad. So where it talks about retcon, they actually encourage it in the game, which is kind of strange. In role-playing games, you don't usually have a retcon. That's the bad, no, we don't retcon. But in this, it's a comic book. So in superheroes, in comic books, they will often have retcons. They'll change the history, they'll change the narrative. And in this one, it's different. But it says, like, how to do it in a good way instead of a bad way. And kind of like, oh yeah, it's okay. So the situation continues. Crud! I dashed through the portal, but stay low behind the control consoles. If there's someone there, I don't want them to see me. Awesome, the Games Master replies. This is a golden opportunity because Hornet, the character, has headed into danger without any backup. So you go through the portal on the other side, and you immediately hear a weird buzzing sound from the voice. And then a voice from somewhere in the control room. I've been waiting for you, young girl. It's weirdly electronic and familiar. You're pretty sure it's Technotrix, one of Mantis's old foes. Oh man, I remember her. No way I'm going to win against her. I probably shouldn't go in. Too late. You're through the portal already. You hear a snap as the portal shuts down behind you. What? How did you do that? And this is the retcon. So I'm following the previously established fiction, revealing a truth to the Hornet. You can almost hear her grin in the bizarre voice. Remember when someone stole the data from Mantis's cores? You were so worried about something being taken or deleted, you didn't look for anything that was left inside the system. So something happened previously where, like, the data core was like attacked or hacked or whatnot, and they were trying to see what was deleted or what was stolen, but they didn't try to detect, maybe something was bombed, maybe someone was left where something could be taking control. So you're retconning a little bit, but you're putting in an extra level of story because it makes sense in this situation. And sure, they didn't actually check for it, so you're not changing things. You're just revealing new truths which may have happened months ago in the story that didn't really happen then, but it makes sense now. And I like that how they say it, how they work it in, and it makes sense for me. I like when making a character in a role-playing game to give, like, ideas but not solid concrete things. That way the ideas can change, or I can add things in as they come important, and you can add things in as you go along. And I learnt that from a game from a show I used to watch, and it's just a really interesting way of doing it, because if you have a character background all written out, you can't change it, it's all written down. But if you have, like, little points and bullet points, you can add further things in, and it makes a bit more sense to, if the situation arrives, you can go, oh damn, I remember back in the war, and you can tell a story which never happened until now that you've told the story, it's happened, now it's part of your background. This is that type of thing, but in the world itself. And I like that idea that it's something that is usually don't retcon, it's a evil thing, but in this, work it in if it needs. And it's a nice little do. So moves and dice. So framing a scene starts the conversation into an interesting place, like knocking an arrow on a bow and aiming at a target. So in that case before, you're knocking the arrow by, you haven't spoken to your mentor for a while, and like you haven't spoken to her since. Like that's the knocking, that's the drawing the arrow of like just like trying to lead the character in that direction. The player could just say no. I don't want. I think I feel guilty about what happened. I don't think I'll go see. I'll take a few days off before speaking to her, and that's stepping away. That's putting the arrow back into the quiver. But as soon as you get to the alley, and you start talking about the teleporter being broken, that's pulling on. That's like putting the arrow, not just taking the arrow out of the quiver, but putting it onto the string. That's the knocking the arrow. But as the player jumps in, that's the pulling back the string. You've got them. And so it's like a nice little adding, like just one to the next. So, but the moves carry the arrow to the target. They connect your characters to the fiction in exciting ways. And they drive the story in directions that you might not expect. Each move is a small set of rules which help resolve conflicts, answer questions in the fiction, and they push the story forward. Moves are like programming language in the game. When you do X, then Y. So in the example which we read earlier about the fighting the people, the black-clad soldiers, you didn't have to roll dice. That person didn't have to roll dice until they were going into the fray, until they were going into danger. And that's when she engaged the threat, that's the move, that's when things became nasty. That's when you engage a threat, then why? Then you roll dice. That's the programming language that they're talking about. And it's an interesting way of talking about it because, look, a lot of role players are geeks, so they kind of understand that idea of programming language. Even if they don't understand programming language, they understand that if X, then Y is a thing. It's also, I should add, it's also a therapy thing for autistic people. And there's a lot of role players that are autistic. So it's a nice little subtle thing there. And a lot of people would understand it. So I'm autistic myself. So yeah, there's some really interesting concepts. So we'll move away from that, and because that's the core rules. That like the core rules was just one page of the D6, plus or minus, and this is Games Master that decides. You need to get 7 or higher. If you get 7 or higher, you succeed. If you get 10 or higher, you have a strong success. If you get under that, it's a miss, but it's not exactly a miss because it's not a failure. It's just the Games Master takes control of the narrative and they decide how it's bad for your character, even if they still succeed. Because you're still a superhero, you're going to succeed. But the success may be with a moral issue or something else, or someone else is put in danger, etc. So it's a nice little way of driving the narrative as well. So preparing to play. Before you play Mask, there are a few things you need to prepare, a few things you need to think about. So preparing to play, you need space to play. If you're playing face-to-face, a table big enough to fit everybody. It's actually really important. It's really weird. I used to have a group which like 10 people, so we couldn't play at a table. So we had like a lounge room, and some of us had chairs, some of us didn't. There was bean bags. It was a weird situation. So space to play sounds simple, but it's actually important. During play, establish boundaries. So if you aren't establish boundaries, so you aren't disturbed by people around you. So don't hesitate to take breaks. It's actually really important to take breaks. Really, really important. Like not just bathroom breaks, but even just snack breaks, just character breaks, just like de-stressing. Kind of important. So there's no need to rush. we used to do sessions like for 12 hours long, so we had breaks. We would have like an hour long dinner break in those sessions. But we would go like for 12-hour long gaming sessions. Nothing like the 3 to 4 hours you do these days, which is common. Um, so yeah, so Hallican City, which is this source book. So Hallican City, if you're playing Mars, you're in Hallican City. So pretty much done. You're playing in the city. You, like a lot of game systems have, you can do this city, you can do that, you can do this. Like this, okay, this is the city, this is the established law, go for it. Which actually makes it easy to get into. If you only have to have one city to learn about, it makes learning a system really easy. Um, so let's see. There are a few other source books. The one I have in Mask that offer even more information, which is talks about again the one I have. Actually, no, I don't have the Sequence of Ages. But here's the thing: Hallican City is yours to play with. Change and modify, adapt as you choose. A few things should be true about Hallican City, no matter what. There have all sorry, there have been 3 full generations of superheroes, supervillains, superpowered calamities before now, stretching back to the earlier parts of the 20th century. The PCs, which is the player characters, are members of the 4th generation. Members of the prior generations are still active and interested in the future of Hallican City. So the city's pretty used to all kinds of insanity, from dinosaurs rampaging down the streets to dark wizards transforming sections of the city into castles, to parallel dimensions appearing in the sky, to aliens invading. It doesn't mean that these things aren't still amazing and surprising, but they happen. And they're a factor of life in the city. Hallican rolls on even after something seems to go, seems like that to change everything. Now, there is a series, thing called Powerless. I think it was last year or the year before that came out. It was really funny. It's about superheroes it's about people living in, I think it's Champion City, or it could be something like that in the DC universe. And like the whole thing starts with them on a train, like on the raised train you get in American cities, and a superhero battle is happening, and like the newcomer to this is, oh my god, this is so exciting, and she's looking out the window, and everyone's like, oh, okay, like calling the office, going, look, can you change my 9 o'clock meeting to like later in the day? It looks like we're probably going to be delayed, and there's all this. The citizens are like, yeah, it's just another superhero battle. Like, we're going to have to change our day. We're going to do this. And that's the attitude for that city. But in this one, it's still spectacular. Even with 3 generations previous, it's still a spectacular thing. But we still move on. So I like that. I do like the oh god, not again type situation. I like that attitude. But in this one, it's the opposite. And it's saying this does not change. This is how it should be done. It's still a spectacular thing. I just like the opposite. So the city is the greatest city in the world, huge and full of nearly anything you could expect to find in any city elsewhere. Monuments, museums, massive corporations, slums, dark alleys, subways, whatever. Huge districts encompass many different populations and neighborhoods throughout the city, and the people living there represent a diverse populations. Oops. Where'd that go? There we go. So other than that, if you need or want to change details, go for it. If you don't think that your version of Hallican City has Aegis, the secret government law enforcement agency, so organization targeting towards metahumans, but instead has metahuman SWAT team forces, then that's great. If you think that your version of Hallican City has a mayor who's a former superhero, that's awesome. So having a mayor who hates superheroes, well, adapt your city to your own choices, which is actually pretty cool. Quite a few products will say this is how it is, and you run off that. And a lot of players get into that mindset of no, this is how it is. I went to change an upcoming show. I went to change one small thing, which has worked really amazingly for me in the past with my face-to-face groups and for shows on the channel. And I got backlash. I got backlash from my players. I'm like, what the hell? Like, oh, but what? Like, people might see this as changing the law of the city. It's like, that's what we do. We change the law to adapt our games to what we like to play and what we want to present. And especially as a channel like this, we want to present a certain style. And it was just, wow, I couldn't believe we had backlash. But I won't say what it was, but I was really shocked. But it was something that works well, and something, as I said, I've done a few times as a player in face-to-face games, and we've done it on channel as well as the games master. So, setting expectations. Superhero stories span a huge melody of styles and genres, from goofy to just plain fun, to dark and gritty. It's important that everybody's on the same page and expect from the same tone and style for your master game. There's room for you to nudge the tone according to your table's choices. The playbooks you select inherently change the game style, but there are some basic elements. So that's an important thing. I've had games and I've ran games which not everyone was on the same page. On this channel, we try to make sure everyone's on the same page. When we're making characters, we make characters as a group. So we group. So we don't just make individual characters. We make a group of characters. We make a team, and in this case, a superhero team. So make sure everybody's on the same page. Everyone's got the same idea of what the theme of the show is going to be. In our new show starting next week, A Guard's Tale, we specifically have the tone of this is going to be essentially cop movie tropes. So we're going through as many tropes as we can from body cop movies and stuff like that, and we're pulling those into the game because this is a game about being city guards in a fantasy medieval setting in a time period of 2020, which, let's face it, police brutality has been in the news all year, and it's not good. Just yesterday, there was the inquest from the Breonna Taylor's murder. That was there. I'm not going to go into details, but we can't do it as a dark and gritty theme. I would love to do a dark and gritty theme as more of a parody style, but we can't do that in this climate. And it's not a smart thing to do, and it's not a respectful thing to do. So we're doing very much a comedy trope theme, and we're really trying to push that comedy to explore, just touch on the exploration of police, but not going to the seriousness of it. We can't do it. It would take a lot of work and very gentle. So we're going to do a different way, and that changes the world. But we make sure everyone is on that same page. Everyone knows what we're doing. Everyone's on that, and it's really important. If we don't have that, games get really weird. I was in a Shadowrun game where we had most people doing half the party doing black trench coat, about 3/4 actually doing black trench coat, which is the super serious style, and we had 2 party members that were not. They were absolutely pink mohawk. They were making life really, really tough for us and making really poor decisions deliberately to make light of the situation, which is kind of like it's the type of style we encourage on this channel. Pretty much everything we do is pink mohawk, but it wasn't the theme of the game, and that was really difficult. So being really difficult in that game, we were actually seriously considering having those characters assassinated to try to bring back other black mohawk characters, as they didn't fit. But it actually comes up front. Make sure everyone's on the same page. So I like that idea, and So growing up in a superhero world, in Mask, all characters are residents of Halligan City. They may not have lived there for their entire lives, but they've been long enough to get a gist of the place. This means they know about the long tradition of superheroes and villains. They know about the craziness that happens on the city streets, and they know they're part of that world. Everyone can name at least a few heroes and villains. Everyone can remember at least one instance of seeing a superhero or supernatural event. This isn't happening for the first time. Super stuff isn't brand new. It's a fact of life. What's more, because the characters are part of that world, they're they're all of interest to someone. The older generations are guaranteed to have invested in you and who you become, whether it's because they want to stop you from becoming whether it's because they want you to stop you from becoming a great superhero or because they want to foster you or whatever. There's no way you'll slip by unnoticed, or receive support from the older. Yeah, okay. So there's always the older generations meddling, in who you are, and I like that. I think that's really cool. So without going into a huge amount of details in each move, each bits and pieces, I think we'll end here because we want to try to keep these nice and short. But just wanted to try to we do this to try to explain kind of what the game is about, the styles and whatnot, and it's really cool. I like the Powered by Apocalypse. I haven't got a chance to play it. It's still still very foreign to me. Powered by the Apocalypse is like the underlying system, like the underlying narrative and rule system that they use here. And I like that this is a superhero system. Unlike last, I was going to say last week, but the last episode where it's very comic book, and very cartoony, which ramps up. In this, yes, it does have those as well. Doesn't specifically have those ramp up mechanisms and systems, but it does talk about that it is very much a comic book style. But in this a comic book world where you've got generations of pressure on you, and as it says, they might not want you to even become a big superhero as a rival to their own power. So there's always other things going on. And I like that stuff. I like that stuff. It's a huge book. Like, this is a 200-page book, which has a lot of information. Like, a lot of information. The rules, 1 page. And like the rules section, like 4 page, like so, under 10 pages, for the whole section. So it's a very small focus of the game, but the powers is a big focus. The settings is a massive, massive focus, and the style of how to play is also a good focus in this 200-page book. I would recommend it, even though I haven't played it. I like what I've read. Every time I go into this and start reading these books for the Master New Generation, I'm always impressed with what I see. I'm not going to go into all the bits and pieces, but I really do like how it is written, because it's done really well, and I think it's worth checking out if you're interested in role playing. If you're new to role playing, I would highly suggest looking into the Powered by Apocalypse style games because they're very easy to pick up. They're very narrative heavy, where it's more about describing your actions and having that as a conversation, rather than rules heavy with lots and lots of dice, lots of things to remember, lots of complications. I would never recommend Dungeons and Dragons as the first entrance into role playing. I'm sorry. Yes, it's got a very simple system to start off with, but that simple system's even more complex than this. And that simple system is built upon... So the simple system is built around exceptions to that simple system. So as you go up level in your character, you have more and more complications and exceptions to the rules, which complicates the system further and further and further. So yes, it may be simple at the start, it gets highly complex as you go, and it becomes unwieldy. So this system is built on a very basic principle, and it stays with that basic principle the entire way through. So this is probably one of the most rules light systems, not just this, but the actual Powered by Apocalypse. It'd be very hard to get your hands on Power at the moment. So this is the Powered by Apocalypse. You probably can't see it, but this is the Powered by Apocalypse itself. It's actually very hard to get your hands on these books these days because they're out of print. But everything you want is in drive-through RPG, like in PDF formats, and this took me ages to try to track down and wait for a good copy, which is near mint. And yeah, very hard to track down. But Powered by Apocalypse is the core system which started this entire craze. There's 30, 40 plus books built off this system because the ideas in this were so good. 30, 40 different books. Not just from Powered by Apocalypse, but as in different systems like Masks, the new generation, Glitter Hearts, and there's so many different things out there because the system works. So I'd highly recommend having Powered by Apocalypse style games as your first one in, because it's a softer entry in, very little rules and a very different style, and I think the style is better than what is out there. But you won't find campaigns because it's more driven by the players. It's more an ad lib style, so it's very different. But I think it's really cool. So I'm going to end the book club reading now. We go back to page 0. No, of course there's not a page 0. Let's go to page 1 then. There we go. So this is the Master New Generation. It's really cool. I think it's really cool. Artwork's great. The concepts are great. The story, the writing. Every time I read through the writing of the game, and the writing of the city and the setting, it's really well written. It's very creative, and I don't see it as a flawed system. I think it's actually really, really good, and it's rules light. Like, you can't beat rules light. And if you want other styles, check out, like, you want the very base game, it's Powered by Apocalypse. And if you don't like superheroes, you want something more in line with more traditional Dungeons and Dragons, check out Dungeon World. Again, Powered by Apocalypse, and same system and same narrative. There's also other bits and pieces out there. There's so many stuff out there in this type. We're actually going to look specifically at Powered by Apocalypse soon. We're going to have a guest come in to actually help speak about it, because it's a really foreign game to me. And so, like, we're going to have someone in who really knows it well. So that's going to be, not just knows it well, but that was their start. And that's why I think it's probably a better way to start into role-playing games, because it's pretty cool. Anyway, I'm going to head off. Thank you everyone for coming in. And don't forget, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Twitter, watching this on Twitch through our VODs, please go to YouTube and watch our stuff on YouTube instead. We've got everything there, not just the recent stuff. Everything's there, dating back since the start of the channel. We've got our original BB Goblins games. Please, I'm sorry about our original overlays and whatnot. I thought I was being pretty, like, they were horrible. But we've got so much content on YouTube, and every time you press the like button, every time you leave a comment in YouTube, it adds. It will then tell the algorithm, oh, this might be something to suggest to somebody else, and that spreads everything. So please, we're going to be stopping our VODs on Twitch at the end of the year. So please do everything on YouTube, and if you subscribe to YouTube, it's free, absolutely free. So yeah, go to YouTube instead. But we're going to end this now. Next week, I don't know what we're going to do, but I did just get delivery on Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition. And I opened one page and it was like, that's the best description of the D20 I've ever read. And it's like one paragraph, and that's the whole rules for the system, and that's what it says. And that's it. Now you can play. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. So I'm possibly going to be doing Mutants and Masterminds next week. I've also got a few other superhero ones. So we'll continue from Sentinel Comics through to Masks, maybe to Mutants and Masterminds, maybe to a few other superheroes before possibly going to Apocalypse World. Who knows? We usually make this up as we go along. But I do like reading new systems, exploring new systems, and showing them off to the world, because everyone plays one system and it's not that good. They've just got really good marketing. But of course, that's my opinion. Anyway, have a great day. My name's Karsh Goblin. This is the Goblin Cave. Enjoy your role playing and enjoy your reading. So, bye for now. Bye.